I'm going to use using clause. So I will say select, let me also say select star again from employees. Join. This time around, I will not say natural join. I will just say join. So let's start from employees. Join department. Are you with me? Join department. Using, I'm the one telling it now. What is going to use? I told you the natural join used two tables, two columns to join because those two columns were common and they had the same data type. One was manager ID and the other one was department ID. He used those two columns to do the joining. Now, in this one now, and the natural join did it implicitly. It did that joining, selecting the column by itself. But in this one now, I am going to be the one specifying the columns that the join should use for joining the two tables together. So I'm saying using, then I'll put it in parentheses, using department underscore ID. So I terminate. Now I'm now making use of the using clause. So select star from employees, join department using department ID. When I execute that, see, it's also giving me output, bringing out all the columns from the employees table, just like the natural join did, and all the columns from the department table. That is what, but it did the combination using only the department ID. That is what it did. And if you look at it, if you look at this, if you run this, the one of natural join, when you run it, you can see here, it brought out only 32 names, 32 rows, 32 rows. Those are the rows that met the join condition. While if you use this one and you run, it's bringing out 50, first 50, let's scroll down. It's bringing out 106. And you know that we have 107 employees. So one particular employee did not meet the join condition of this using. So as we go on, you will be seeing how you can bring out such an employee, which join condition you will use to bring out such an employee, because you will need the employee to come out. So you will need a particular join condition to meet that output. Now, this is using clause. I'm saying join these two tables together using the department ID. So it will go to the employees table, bring out the first row, go to the end of it, look at the department ID. What is the ID? It will identify it. It will now take that ID and go to the department table and then bring out everything that is in that row and combine it as my output. Now, I want to achieve this. I want to bring out this same report. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to just copy that, and then I'll remove this star, and then I'll paste. So I'm running the same, I want to bring out the same output. But this time around, I'm not using natural join. I'm using clause. So I'm going to execute this. Look at this. Now, it brought out, it will give me 106 employees. See, 106 employees. Why this one gave me only 32 employees? Because this one used two tables, two columns, to do the joining. And only those that met the conditions of those two columns are the ones he brought out. While this one used only one column to do the joining, and every row that meets the condition of this one column will come out. So knowing which type of join to use in your output depends on the output that you are expected to produce, one. Two, depending on the type of data that are in your tables. So you need to be familiar with your table to know the kind of data that are there. That will help you determine which type of join to actually use, which type of join condition to actually use. Are you with me? But most importantly, you are seeing how to combine two tables together or more than two tables together to get an output. We are going to do more than two tables, but for now, we are just dealing with two tables. So I've used the using clause. Now, I'm going to use the third one, which is the on clause. And then with that, I'll be able to explain some other things to you. So here I will say select, I want to do this. I want to do this. But in this one now, I will introduce something different. I have used the natural join clause, using clause. Now I want to use the on clause. And with this on clause, I will teach you more things. I will introduce some other things. I want to get this output out. I want to get out this output using the on clause. So I will say select employee ID, first name, department ID, department name from employees, right? Join department. I will tell you something. Join department on, right? I'll put this in parentheses. Let me finish the write-up. I'm still going to use the department ID. Don't worry. I will tell you on department underscore ID equals to department underscore ID. Now, if you look at this, my query, let me separate it so that you will really see it very well. If I run this query, I will get error. It's called ambiguity error. What is the ambiguity error? Department ID equals to department ID. The Oracle server will be confused. What is he asking me to do? He's asking me to pull out data from employees table and from department table. And he's telling me that I should use department ID equals to department ID. It will be confused. This is ambiguity. You are going to qualify the table by giving it an alias, just like you give alias to your columns. So you are also going to give an alias to the tables. Since you have department ID in the employees table and department ID in the department table, for this to work, you have to differentiate it. Where the department ID of the employee table equals to department ID of the department table. So to achieve that, you now need to introduce an alias. Why are we introducing an alias? In order for it to be shorter and reduce memory space. In this syntax, look at this syntax. This syntax was telling you table 1 dot column, table 2 dot column. Now, this is table 1, this is table 2. I'm going to use this now in that place. But instead of me writing the full table name, if I write the full table name, it will still work. But it's going to consume memory of my computer. So I'm just going to waste memory. I'm going to introduce an alias for each of the table. So like these employees, I'm going to just paste and then type E. Let me make it lowercase. I'm just going to type E for it. And then for this department space, I'm just going to type D for it. It means that this E is the alias for employees table, and this D is the alias for the department table. Now, having specified that, I am now going to come to this place to now say E dot. So I am saying the department ID from the employee table. That is what this means. So I'm saying the name, the first name and the last name. That is your name and your surname. So this E is showing that this name, department ID, is coming from this parent, which is the employee table. Then this side, I will put the D dot. So this means that the department ID is coming from the department table, while the department ID is coming from the employee table. So my joint condition is that the department ID of the employee table must be equal to the department ID of the department table. Once I see this condition, any row that meets this condition, that row will be returned. Now, Because I have given alias to the employees table and the department table, each of my columns must have a qualifier, meaning I must specify each of these columns where they are coming from. So this employee ID is coming from the employee table. So I will put the E dot employee ID. This first name is coming from the employee table. So I will put the E dot first name. This department ID is coming from the employee table, even though I have department ID in the department table. So I'm picking the one from the employee table. So I will say E dot. Now, this department name is coming from the department table. So I'm going to say D dot. So this information now that I've given will make the Oracle server to quickly know where to go in searching for the column that is going to give us an output. So it will go to the employee table to get the employee ID, employee table to get the first name, employee table to get the department ID, and it will go to the department table to get the department name. Then any condition, any row that meets this on condition, which is department ID in the employee table equals to the department ID in the department table. Any row that meet that condition will be returned. And the columns that will be returned will be these 4 columns. 4 columns. So when I run this, see, it's giving me this output. And it's giving me how many rows? Let's scroll down. It's giving me 106 rows. You can see that it's giving me the same output as this one, where I did using department ID. So this one and this one are giving me the same. Why? Because I specifically stated outwardly the condition. Both of them are giving me the same output. Now, where can I use this on clause? I can use it even if the department, the column names are not the same. So I can have a column in the employee table that is not the same name with the column in the department table, but the data inside are the same. So I can equate them together such that when it comes and it looks at that column in the employee table, it will go to the department table and check. If it equates themselves, it will return that row. So that is where the on clause come in, that I can use the on clause instead of the using clause. We are trying to pull out data from 2 different tables. That is the objective. We want to pull out data from 2 different tables. All your data are not in one place. This is a world, a completely different world like our own. So let's come back to Nigeria again. We have Nigeria and we have 36 states in Nigeria, right? Now, for Nigeria to survive as a country, we have raw materials in different locations. The oil that Nigeria sell is in South, right? And all the oil are not in the same state. They are in different states in the South, right? Now, for Nigeria to survive as a country, Nigeria has to go to each of these states to pull out those oil. Nigeria has to go to another state, some other state in the north, to pull out some other raw materials or resources. So it is like that. All your data are not in the same table. All your data are in different tables. Now, what is it you desire? What is it you want? Will now determine which of these tables you are going to combine. Now, the tools that you will use to combine these tables is what we are now learning, which is what? This join. How do you combine the tables? So under join, that is the capability of the select statement. So under this join, we have different types of join, which is what? Equi-join, which is also referred to as natural join, and non-equi join. And then we also have what? The last one, which is the what? Cross join. Now, we are still dealing with the natural joins. Under this natural join, we have 3 tools that we are using, called the natural join clause, the using clause, and the on clause. Now, I have used these three in this lecture today to show you. Now, I told you that when do you use them? For the natural joint clause, you use it when you have tables, when you have columns in the two tables that have the same name and the same data type. That's when you use natural joint clause. Now, when you have columns in the two tables that have the same name but different data type, you can use using clause. Then you can equally use on clause for columns that have the same name, different data type, and you can also use the on clause for columns that have different names. And you can also use for columns that have the same name. But the common thing again between the using clause and the on clause is that you are the one that is going to explicitly state the join condition. You are explicitly stating the join condition. Whereas in the natural join clause, the system would determine the columns to use for the joining. So any columns, if you have multiple columns that have the same name, the same data type in both tables, natural join clause will use all those columns. That is why the output of your natural join, when we run, is just 32 because it combines two columns, manager ID and department ID. Those two columns are common in the two tables. Whereas the using clause and the on clause are using just one column, which is what? Department ID. Now, this is how you write. You write your query. For this natural join, you are going to say, you know the columns that you want as your output. You know the columns that you want as your output. So you will state all those columns in your select list. You will state all those columns in your select list, whether they are from employee tables or they are from the department table. You will state all of them in your select list. And then you will now say from, which is the normal thing we've always been doing. From, you must identify the source. You state the first table, which is what we've done here, from employees. Then you will now call the join condition. And we are calling the natural join clause. Natural joined the department table. Finish. That is all. In this one, you are not going to qualify the clause, the columns, meaning you are not going to say, you are not going to give an alias to the tables. You don't do that in natural join. You don't give alias to the table in natural join. Then in the using clause, there is another thing again I have to tell you. Like this department ID now, this department ID that is used in this using clause, this department ID can never have alias if it is used anywhere in this table. So if I choose to give alias to employee ID, first name, and department name, I cannot give alias to this department ID because it is already being used in the using clause. That is another condition. So those are rules that you need to know. Whereas in the on clause, I have to qualify it by bringing alias for it. Because if I don't, when I'm clearly stating that a column in this particular table should be equals to a column in the other table, and those columns are the same. If I don't qualify it by using alias of the table names or using the table name itself to identify each of the columns, it will throw me ambiguity error, telling me that this column is existing here, this column is existing here. So when you are equating them together, where am I going to look for them? So that is ambiguity. It will throw me ambiguity error. So that is why I have to qualify it by using the alias of what? Of the table, of each of the table. Those are just the differences between all of them. And that is what I have demonstrated.